Proud Boys leader sentenced to 17 years in prison over January 6. Here's a clip.
Here we go. From the Daily Mail, former Proud Boys leader Joe Biggs sobs during sentencing as he's given 17 years in prison over January 6 after begging court not to separate him from his daughter and cancer-stricken mom.
That
Biggs,
is awful.
Ethan Nordine, Zachary Rail, and Enrique Tarrio were all found guilty of the charges after they broke into the Capitol following the 2020 election. Full stop. Fake news. Enrique Tarrio was actually not there. So, yeah, his charges, I don't believe anything to do with him. He was arrested beforehand and barred from the city. Tarrio was not there. So you gotta correct that one, Daily Mail. The judge ruled Biggs was qualified for a terrorism sentencing enhancement. Biggs' sentence is one of the harshest handed out in Capitol riot cases, only behind the 18-year sentence for Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes. Here's where it gets interesting. So this is Joe Biggs. Many of you may know him. He worked for InfoWars. He said, "I know that I have to be punished, and I understand." But he added, "Please give me the chance, I beg you, to take my daughter to school and pick her up. I wanted to see what would happen. My curiosity got the best of me. I am not a terrorist. I'm one of the nicest people in the world." Judge Timothy Kelly wasn't having it, as he said Americans are the envy of the world and U.S. elections must be respected, telling Biggs, "You did play a role in riling up the crowd. If you don't like how an election is being conducted, you can speak out, call, write, or meet with election officials. You can engage in peaceful protest, file a lawsuit." That right there is why I think we absolutely have to talk about this story, because that judge lied. Or he's really dumb. Maybe both.
Yeah, I was about to say maybe both.
If you peacefully protest, like the people who were walking around the other side of the building, they're going to arrest you anyway.
Yep.
If you say sit in front of an abortion clinic,
the Oath Keepers guy didn't have any guns, and they sentenced him to 18 years. He didn't even go into the Capitol. He was like on the grounds, I think, but he wasn't even like next to the building necessarily. And they still gave him 18 years.
Going to try to give you 11 years in prison because you peacefully protested. How about this? If you speak out on Twitter, they'll claim it's part of a criminal conspiracy. If you make a phone call, part of a criminal conspiracy. Write or meet with election officials. Not only are they charging Donald Trump, his staff, and legal team for doing these things, they've even criminally charged the election officials that they met with.
Yeah.
So this is insanity. 17 years. Why? What did he do? He tore a fence down. Should he have done it? No.
That's all he did,
Should he have been punished or prosecuted or whatever? Yeah. 2.5 years, maybe a little harsh for tearing down a fence. Yeah. You take a look at what happened.
Yeah, Antifa does it all the time. They go and break barricades and they don't even get charged. I'm not saying they should be getting charged, but considering not getting charged at all versus 17 years in prison for tearing down a fence. Like, yeah, give him something. Yeah, probation probably. But 17 years, insanity. And again, the left doesn't get charged with anything.
Happened with the far left extremists, BLM or otherwise, nothing.
Yeah,
so this is particularly extreme. We have some commentary here. Matt Walsh says, a man just got 17 years in prison for tearing down a fence on January 6th. Meanwhile, a guy responsible for burning an entire police station to the ground during the BLM riots got only 4 years. No sane person thinks this is justice. But we do not live in a sane world. It is an insane world. And of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene has come out saying, Proud Boys organizer Joseph Biggs sentenced to 17 years by U.S. District Judge Timothy Kelly. How many violent BLM rioters are serving 17 years? Especially after rotting in jail for the past 2 years, J6ers need to be pardoned. They've been persecuted enough. I have, this is the kind of thing that gives me a sinking feeling, because what I did following the story is I went to look at a few forums to see what the sentiment was among Trump supporters and fans of Joe Biggs. And, it's getting scary out there, because the response from these people is terrifyingly, as I've predicted, the view that the government is illegitimate, law enforcement doesn't exist, and the perception among those who support Donald Trump is increasingly becoming, and for many already is, that these law enforcement officers are no different than a guy in a clown costume. That if a person walks up to you wearing a set of clothes, it doesn't mean anything. They're now saying that this is Soviet-style communist revolution. This is what was happening in the Spanish Civil War. And if this escalates, and likely will, because the far left will not stop, they're going insane. I don't know if they're a zombie horde setting fire to everything around them, just screeching at the top of their lungs, or it's intentional. But you want to know who's at fault for the continued strife in this country? It's not Joe Biggs. It's this judge. 17
Exactly.
years, that's going to freak people out and not the way they think. Now, here's what I want to add before we just jump into the full conversation. The reason why they gave him 17 years, it has nothing to do with who Joe Biggs is or what he did. It's because of the mob phenomenon, and they want everyone to know that they will throw the book at you and the hammer if you engage in any kind of mob mentality phenomenon. That is to say, often what we see in these riots with the far left, you have a mob of people walking around clueless. One guy will walk up to a door at a store and jiggle the handle and then run away. Another guy will run up within a split second as he's running away and grab the handle and pull the door open. Someone else will see the door being opened and they'll peek their head in. Someone behind him will shove him in. Then people see people going in the building and they all start rushing the building. There was no immediate action where an individual thought to themselves, we should storm this building. And that's what happens with Joe Biggs. He's just there. He has no idea what's going on. Despite the fact that they say that there's communications by the Proud Boys. Yeah, they were saying like, what are we doing? What's going on? He's there. People start taking action and he goes along with it. So they're basically setting an example. We don't care who you are. We don't care what you've done. If you are in the mob, you're going down. And that's why the people who did not get violent and had no idea what was happening on the other side of the building are being criminally charged. The courts have literally told them, because you were part of a mob, you are going to prison.
With Joe Biggs, one of those tweets is the first tweet you pulled up, said that he's getting, Matt Walsh, 17 years for tearing down a fence. But Kellen, you mentioned before the show, he was also screaming a barricade. He was also yelling for people to go in and to do stuff.
No, I just said they were proud. Like there's videos of him saying, we just did it. Yeah, we were just in there. Like, heck yeah, they were happy.
They were taking selfies inside the Capitol and things like that.
And the video in the court, in the trial was someone walking up to him being like, we just got in the Capitol. What do you think? And he goes, awesome.
Okay, so he's celebrating.
I mean, there's also video of Zachary Real, who's also sentenced today. He's getting 15 years, and he was also convicted of seditious conspiracy during this 3-month trial, of him saying, don't go into the Capitol. Don't go in there. And they're like, irrelevant to us. You have to go in because later you threw something at a police officer. I mean, there are things where I can agree, like, it was,
don't throw stuff at cops.
Don't throw stuff at cops. It was out of hand. On the other hand, both of these men have young children, and you're locking them up to prove your political point.
Yeah.
And that's pretty sick.
The metaphor, I think, is like if a bully attacks another kid in school, everyone's like, oh God, you want the bully to lose. So the kid somehow fights back and he beats the bully and he knocks the bully down. Then everyone's like, yay. But if the kid starts stomping on the bully's face and smashing his skull, people will run over and grab the kid and pull him off. The government has gone too far by hitting these guys with 17 years. They're now smashing the skull of the guy. It's unnecessary.
A bit brutal, but I agree.
Extremely brutal what they're doing. And it's going to cause massive
analogies.
It's going to cause sentiment that people are going to start to hate the victim now.
This is right. This is even the Krasensteins are like, we think this is a little bit harsh.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
Well, and Kelly
They
is
finally
the
hit their
second
line.
judge that has said something to the effect of, like, because of you, we no longer have stable elections. And
Because of him. It's this judge's fault. I hope everybody you understand that, to throw a point to Ian, who often talks about pardoning your enemies. Now, I don't completely agree with pardoning the worst war criminals of our generation, but there is something to be said of the Chinese finger trap problem in that the harder you pull, the worse you make it. And this is the judge being, the judge may as well have looked into the camera for NBC News and CNN and said that his goal is to destroy this country, because the sentiment among those who support Trump is that they are coming for you, they are coming for your families, they are using violence, they are like the sentiment
abusing
is not,
the law.
well, justice was served. It's
Not at
done the
all.
exact opposite. This is radicalizing people because the sentence is psychotic.
They want to radicalize people.
I was thinking the sentencing disparity that Matt Walsh brought up. Could that be the difference between prosecution and a federal with a federal judge versus like the really relaxed persecution or prosecution that's happening for different states and different cities?
Perhaps, but to the moral question, it doesn't really matter all that much.
Right.
Right. Obviously, we know that the feds can be more harsh. They tend to win all of their cases, the ones they choose. But it's just when you look at these on the surface of what they are, obviously we can say, bro, if you're going to get into a fight with feds, you're going to lose, hands down. But 17 years for knocking down a barrier?
And
It was one of those like little metal barriers.
Yeah.
So
Not good. You shouldn't do it.
Well,
and I think you'd go to jail for it. But
Yeah.
you'd think someone would get like 6-7 months in jail for something like that.
And I feel like I have
Probably
to
a
point out,
couple
even
years
that,
of
2 months.
probation.
I have to point out that the Justice
2 months,
Department
2
asked
years
for
probation,
33
maybe.
years in prison, and they asked for 27 for Zachary Reels. I mean, this is
33 years.
basically sort of half of what they wanted, and it's still, in my opinion, way too much for what happened.
Right. And the one thing I wanted to bring up is you remember the case where the New York City lawyers during the 2020 protests, they were caught with the Molotov cocktails. They got pretty good sentencing from it. So they weren't given lenient sentencing. Not saying that this isn't harsh, but I think the feds are making an example quite clearly. And it's unjustified. And like you said, it's radicalizing people as well. So
I think they want to radicalize
example
people.
while at the same time radicalizing people, which could possibly create the same circumstance that we ended up before. And I don't think they care much about
That's
that.
their goal.
Like
No,
they're
that's their
thinking
goal.
that
I think
step
they
ahead.
care.
But I think for us who are just analyzing things, that seems like a plausible thing that could happen. And God forbid, like one of these indictments go through with with Trump. That, to be honest with you, I'm not a lawyer, but just looking at the different indictments, they don't make much sense to me.
I
They don't make
think
sense to
that Biggs' lawyer should file an appeal on the grounds that the judge advocated for criminal activity, that the judge attempted to incite the defendant and his associates and those listening to commit crimes. And incitement to commit a crime is a crime in and of itself. So I believe this judge should be impeached. He should be removed and criminally charged for the crime of advocating and inciting others to engage in election interference and seditious conspiracy. Because he outright said, if you don't like how the election is being conducted, speak out, call, write, or meet with election officials. Well, as we know, based on what happened in Georgia and the federal charges, that's illegal. So I think we're going to have to ask the Republicans to criminally charge this judge.
This Trump appointee judge. I'm going to throw
I
that
don't
one
care
out
who
there.
appointed him.
I think that's what, when I went to cover opening statements, that was what was interesting about sitting with the families, was they were saying like, Kelly is a Trump appointee. He's been more flexible about some things, because a lot of them go into this DC courthouse being like, I am in a hostile city where the jury is already biased against our case, and I have a Democrat appointed judge. They feel doomed from the beginning. And this only affirms this feeling from people who support these people, saying, you know, the government is out to get us no matter what. I mean, 300 people are in jail because of January 6th. Over 1,000 have been charged federally. It just seems like, I can't imagine being a business owner in a city where there were significant rioting during the summer of 2020 and thinking like, wow, I wish someone cared about what happened to me as much as DC cares about what happens to itself. I mean, they experienced so much. There was so much loss there. And yet all of the focus is on these people and one specific day. It seems disproportionate to me.
This is not. It is.
Yeah, I'd agree
it
with
is
that.
incredible naivety to think that a 17-year sentence will set an example for anybody. The only example this judge has set is that there is a biased neo-lib, neocon uniparty machine that will destroy your life unjustly if you speak out against them in any way. And of course, that's not me defending what Joe Biggs did in tearing down a barricade.
Yeah. No, and
and
throwing stuff at
going
police.
into the Capitol or whatever.
Yeah.
He should not have done that.
Or that was
I
the other guy, I
imagine
guess.
riot charge would be a couple of months or something, maybe followed by probation or whatever. But when you look at the crimes committed by the far left, it is fairly obvious. They're being paid money. When the far leftists rioted in DC and burned and set fire to buildings and garbage in the street and a limousine smashing windows, the city paid them millions of dollars. Paid them after they got arrested. When it's the right at the Capitol, I mean, look, and you've also had the left storm into the Senate and, you know, buildings and bang on the Supreme Court doors and go into the Capitol, all of that. Not a peep, nobody cares. So all that they're doing.
Oh, those trans
setting an
people in all these trans laws for minors that are going into effect, the left would just go in there and be screaming stuff. They can't even conduct the vote. Nothing happens to them. That's what I always say. If Trump wins in 2024, what do you think the left is going to do then? And that's just going to backfire. It's just the Capitol. I've said before, they'll burn the Capitol to the ground, don't you think? Now, I hope that doesn't happen, obviously. Hopefully the Capitol Police are good enough to fend those guys off. But considering Joe Biden's appointing all these people right now, the guy's probably incompetent and it's just going to go crazy. But the plus to that, I guess, would be that, the people would see the left is who they are finally, like straight up. But Capitol, yeah, they'll damage it. Then the people on the right, they went in there. They did. The only people that I ever saw damaging stuff, except for the fences, like the actual, like the one guy hitting the window of the Capitol, that guy was most likely Antifa. I don't even think that guy ever got charged. According to the Epic Times video I saw like a year ago, they did a documentary on it. I can't remember what it was called, but they were saying that guy never even got charged for it, and he's the one breaking the window. And then another person went over there and stopped him. He's like, "Stop it! No, stop!" And he tried to do it again, and the guy like chased him off. So yeah, what do you imagine if there are 100,000 people all on the left? The one woman's just hugging police as they're going out of the Capitol to like stop a certain thing. She's by the door, and there's like a ton of people by the door, and she hugs every single one of them individually. Do you think the left is going to do that? 100,000 leftists? Oh, it's going to get wild. What was it? In May of 2020, they burned down a guard post by the White House. They tried to burn down the White House when Trump was still elected. I think it was May of 2020. Yeah, this stuff is wild. So, yeah, they'll go way, way, way more insane. It's pretty scary. But I guess we'll see what happens. That's if Trump wins, I'm saying, on January 6th of 2025. It'll be wild.
Example that you have oppressors willing to use force against you to take you from your children. And like, if you look at the forums, is what people are saying, the radicalization is terrifying.
And Joe Biden can do this, and then he's going to say, we're not tough on crime, or we are tough on crime. We're talking about San Francisco and New York. We locked all these guys up from J6.
What they're going to say...
We protect democracy.
Right. They're going to say,
that's what we do.
We're battling domestic terrorism. Yeah. Never mind what happens to the cities outside of D.C. Never mind the people who lost their businesses in 2020. We don't care about what happens to them. We care about what happens to us as the head of the government.
This has got to be like they're anticipating riots if they take Trump off the ballot, and they want to intimidate people into not rioting, or be like, hey, make an example of Joe Biggs. Don't even think about it.
I think they want turmoil. Like I've said in other videos, when Trump gets indicted, I've seen leftists on Twitter like, hey, aren't you mad? Your guy's going to jail. Why don't you go storm the Capitol again? That's what they want this to happen. This is their goal. They want to rile people up. They want him to act a fool. That's why, like, all these people that are like mad about this, be mad about it. Get Trump back in there, and he'll get pardoned. It's awful. Another year and a half of him being in there for tearing down a fence when it's already been years. That's awful. But if you go act violent, they're just going to use it against you. They're going to use it to win the election. No, don't do that. Be calm and be patient. It's awful. Don't get me wrong. All this stuff that's happening to these people, these J6ers, completely horrendous. They're getting way too much. Some of them have been in solitary confinement for years for walking into the Capitol when the cops let them in. So it's awful, but be patient. And then if Trump gets in there, he'll probably pardon almost all these guys. But if you're violent, don't be violent. Don't go crazy, because this is exactly what they want. They're setting it up. They wanted J6 to happen. I know that for a fact. Because now they're saying Trump is going to be off the ballot because he participated in an insurrection, right? But they must have set this up before. They wanted to call it an insurrection, so the Capitol Police let him in, and then, the rest is history. Now this is what we're going through, so don't do that again. Even the Capitol Police chief said he thinks it was a setup. So it was most likely a setup. The Capitol Police chief is saying that. Like, what? He's in command of all this. And he was like, oh, no, it's a setup. So be careful. And you can see it now with Georgia. Look at it. Or, what is it? Florida, New Hampshire, now Arizona. They're saying, well, the 14th Amendment says, it's a 14th Amendment says insurrection. No, if you participate in it, this was their plan all along. Before January 6th. They're like, hey, let's go get these people mad. It's going to go push everyone into our direction. But I think really like this type of stuff, 17 years, this has got to be starting to backfire on them, though, because even normal people must be like, wow, 17 years for moving a barricade? Again, maybe a couple years probation, maybe a few months in prison. Yeah, give him something, because you can't be doing that type of stuff. It makes sense. But they were asking for 33 years for moving a barricade. Like, come on. Like, even like leftists, I'm like, they never get charged for anything for storming barricades and stuff. But do I think they should go to jail for 17 years? Absolutely not. That is insane. What is it called where America bans it on cruel and unusual punishment? That is cruel and unusual punishment for sure.
17 years, if you even think about it, kind of thing. But like, you got to understand the damage. It's not, people aren't machines. They don't respond A to B like a computer program. And if you just can't twist this, man. There's a reason that we have
Ian, they want this to happen.
System built like it's built so that people in the center don't take control.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast.
Very interesting. Yeah, I just kind of said I didn't know it was going to end so soon. But yeah, I kind of just summed it all up already just right there. Don't be violent. 17 years is way too much. The left, they just let them do whatever they want. But then if you go and do the same exact thing, they have the power and they don't care. Republicans are nicer than Democrats. Even people in the center, if they're leftists, or I guess a Trump appointee judge, but I guess it doesn't matter. Yeah, they want you to freak out. They want people to be violent. They want the right to go insane. This is the whole goal. Like Ian Crossland right there, the long-haired guy at the end, he was like, "Oh no, if you do this, you're gonna radicalize people." They want that. He doesn't get it. That's what they want to happen. That's why they let him into the Capitol on January 6th, because they wanted all the news coverage, them storm the Capitol. We're going to make that the narrative. Everyone's going to hear it. Joe Rogan said that it had this narrative, was repeated this. So, how January 6th can't happen. January 6th can't happen. Which, I mean, I agree. But it wouldn't have happened if Antifa wouldn't have been there and if they didn't let him in there. If what Ray Epps, the Fed, was telling people what to do and orchestrating this, and I think he might be getting charged now. I heard something about that. But one leftist congressman, I don't know his name, he was defending him. He's like, "What? He's your voter, and you're going after him? Why don't you just leave the guy alone? This is why you don't get any votes anymore on the Republican side, because you're just going after your own guy. How come that guy's not saying that about every other person, Jay Sixer? Why is he not saying that?" So, yeah, it was all inside job. It was all orchestrated. So that's what I'm saying. This is orchestrated too. They're going to give these people crazy sentences. They're going to torture them to make more people do the same thing. Then they're going to do it to you. It's basically going to become concentration camps. Maybe that's a little exaggerated, but you see my point. They're going to go get everyone that gets more radicalized because they're doing this crazy stuff. Then you get violent. I saw something today. 14 people are getting charged nationwide for threatening election workers. They're going to find you and they're going to throw you in jail. And then the media is going to write about you. And they're going to, I think everyone on the right is crazy just because 14 people did it. They said 1,000, but then only 1% qualified for crimes. But do I even agree? Do I even think that's true? The 1,000? I don't, probably not. But the other people are pleading guilty. They probably did it. But I understand why people get angry. The election, all the anomalies, and they didn't even investigate it. Mike Pence just agreed with it. He didn't even put it back to the states for a 1-week investigation so they can recertify and do audits. No. He didn't do that at all. So then it just made everything crazy, and this is exactly what they wanted. Mike Pence is establishment. So you got to blame Trump for some of this, though. Why did he? If he wouldn't have picked Mike Pence, I mean, I guess he didn't know. How could you know? I didn't think he realized how much everyone was going to be against him and how establishment everything is. I think he thought certain people, he probably went and met with Mike before the election, before he told him he was going to be VP. And Mike's like, "Oh, no, I agree with you on all of this." So and he's like, "Okay, great. Awesome." It's not like the business world, that Trump's used to, and he was in it for so long in the business world. He comes into politics, and he's just like, "Oh, everyone's just gonna agree with me. I'm the president. I'm the leader." No, it's not that simple. And he learned that. I hope next time, like I've said in other videos, it's interesting because now he knows after 4 years who is loyal to him. Because anyone like Mike Pence, Brian Kemp, Ron DeSantis, all these people that he thought were loyal are not loyal. And now we can see. Now he knows Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, he knows Rudy Giuliani. He's loyal to him. These people he knows are loyal, so I'm hoping this is who he puts in his cabinet. This is who he elevates when he gets reelected, because maybe he can actually clean out the deep state if he does this, right? Get Ramaswamy in there. He wants to go get him as VP. He also said he would have just certified the election and just used that leverage to get election laws passed. But what I said in the video the other day, it's like, well, okay, well, what if the left gained control in 2022 and just reversed it? So no, they should have just sent it back to the states that they had questions. They could have audited over the week. And then if they would have recertified, yeah, I mean, it's going to be political turmoil if you don't have the peaceful transfer of power. So yeah, definitely if the next time, if they recertify, but if the states didn't recertify, and then they're like, oh, no, actually, Trump won. It could have happened in 1960. Kennedy and Nixon. Kennedy lost Hawaii. They sent alternate electorates. Nixon's like, okay, he was the vice president at the time. He's like, okay, let's hear it. They did a revote. Kennedy won. So it's not like it's unprecedented. You know, it happened in 1960, and John F. Kennedy, iconic president. If they wouldn't have done that, Nixon and Kennedy, which is ironic because Nixon was before all this crazy stuff with Hillary Clinton and everything, and all the spying, and now the government apparatus. Nixon was known, the Watergate guy. He's the guy who spies. He's evil. But what did he do? He was the opposite party. He was a vice president for a Republican, and then still he was like, okay, well, let's see how he has to say. There's some anomalies. Let's see what happens. And then he did it, and then Kennedy won, and Nixon accepted it. Why didn't Pence do that? And when Pence is in his own party, it's so weird. And then Ramaswamy recently, he was like, no, I would have done the same thing, except I would have used the leverage to get a vote passed through. And I was like, why would you do that then? So you're not even actually challenging it based on any grounds. You're just like, okay, they won't pass the law I want for voter ID, so I'm not going to certify it because of that. That's a bad look. I think that was bad on Ramaswamy. But for all the other stuff, it won't matter, I guess, next time. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it would if Trump goes, and then I think Ramaswamy would probably just... How interesting would this be, right? So 2028, Ramaswamy wins presidency after Trump wins in 2024, and then the election thing. So now he's just in charge of his own election. It's very interesting. It really is. It's weird how that's the law, considering vice presidents run all the time. So, yeah, that's actually a very fascinating narrative. But didn't that happen with Al Gore though in 2000? And there was anomalies. Very interesting. But yeah, well, I guess we'll see what happens with all this. But like I said, people should stay calm. Don't be violent. This stuff is insane. They should impeach these judges. Give pushback, but not too much, because you like the Georgia thing. But will they actually get convicted in Georgia? Probably not. But I guess we'll see how it all plays out. But one more time, don't be violent. Stay calm. This stuff's nuts. Go, instead of putting your energy into being violent, go and just make sure people vote overwhelmingly for Trump. Remember the case details for the Georgia case. They got rid of attorney-client privilege, and they're going and trying to prosecute people for speaking out on Twitter. Like Tim was just saying, they speaking out on Twitter, and then the lawyers that gave him legal advice, that filed stuff, and then the election officials they met with, they're prosecuting them too. So when you're talking to people, even if they don't like Trump, just look at what they're doing and the precedent that this will set. And like I was saying in the video yesterday, if they start getting mad and upset, just let them simmer, change the subject, and then later you could bring it up in a week or two and be like, oh, did you look into that again? If there's someone that no, and they're as mad, probably don't even talk politics with them. But I'm just saying, you could slowly change people's mind. Brandon Struck said, hey, I was a far leftist and I hated Trump until one of my friends sent me a video and I begrudgingly watched it. And then he's like, oh, if this isn't true. I think it was the thing, there's good people on both sides. And then he condemns all the other people, the bad people. I've got to watch what I say on YouTube. Yeah, he condemns them, and he's like, oh, what did the media lie to me about? And he said he was in a tizzy, oh my God, freaking out for a week straight, watching all these videos, oh my God, they lied to me for so long. So if you can just prove that and just stay calm, Don't fight with people and just be like, here's the videos, here's the evidence, look at the case, look at the tape. You know, I've covered this stuff a lot in my videos. Hopefully they can stick with it. But if they can watch one of my videos for 10, 15 minutes, some of these videos that I do, you know, can Trump beat the deep state and stuff like that? Some of these videos I do, if they could stick with it, they might get it really informed and they could be like, oh, okay, now I'll go watch other people. I show a lot of people on my podcast. I love this format because it's like having a guest, even though there's no guest, you know, because now people can see like Tim Pool, they can see the quartering, they can see a lot of different sources and see like, oh, okay, it's not me saying it. It's like, here's all these other people saying it. And then they can go dig into these people. You know, like, okay, Timcast, go dig into Timcast, and then they can go watch him if they like him more, and then, you know, be more informed. And if we do that, Trump can get reelected. He'll pardon these people. He'll lock up all this stuff, set a new precedent. And yeah, that would be awesome. So that's the goal we should be doing. That's the goal we should be aiming for. Don't get violent. Don't start fighting the government. Use the system how we have it and put your energy into that.
If you like this video, be sure to subscribe for daily news updates, smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and share your thoughts on the story in the comments below. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.